What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Scratch Agency podcast, hosted by Scratch Agents for Scratch Agents. This episode is brought to you by Virtual Intelligence, recently merged with our friends at On Hand VA, your premier partner for client-facing and back-office virtual employees. My name is Stephen Turnbull, founder of T5 Insurance Services in Clinton, New York, and I'm joined by my co-host today, the one and only, you already know, hold your applause, Mr. Sean Fitzgerald, founder of LAF Advisors, and beautiful, sunny, warm Mr. Bolt, Long Island, New York. Mr. Fitzgerald, what's going on, sir?
Dude, a whole bunch. I mean, over the last week was pretty interesting. You came down to New York City. We'll keep the war stories to a minimum, but it was an awesome time. I got to sit down with you, Michaela, got to stay out late for once in God, I haven't stayed out late in probably a couple of years with two little ones, so it was a a good time. I
Got to
appreciate you
experience a
coming down.
Vegas bomb. Oh my gosh, the
We
whole
don't have
new
to go
world
into all
down
those
there.
details.
Whole new world down there. It was fun, man. We had a great time. Appreciate you guys showing us around and taking the time to get together. Only my second time, which is so funny. We talk about all the time. Everyone says, "You're from New York." Yeah, I've only actually been there 2 times and I'm almost 30, but it was fun. So it was good to see you guys, and I'm sure we'll be back. The train ride's the best part, right? You can just sit back. It's like 5.5 hours, and I got like a ton of work done on Friday, so it's even better. But
now I got to make the trip up to Utica.
That's it. We're waiting. We're all waiting. Me and the chickens are waiting for you, Sean. Arms open. We've got Osama on the show today, and I'm super excited to have this conversation. He's the founder of Insura Agency, and he's a member of our Scratch Agency podcast community. We should definitely talk on that because there's a lot of good stuff going on there. But just celebrated his second year in business. T5 is turning 2 on Monday as we're recording this, and we're excited to have a conversation with 3 people in the room that truly get the Scratch Agency journey. Osama, thank you very much for joining us, especially as a solo one man coming on your 2-year anniversary. We know how busy you are. Thank you for taking the time to join us on the show today. How are you?
Of course, of course. Hey, I appreciate you guys doing this. Thank you for having me on, and honestly, thank you guys for putting this on. Because if it wasn't for you, this entire journey of being an agency owner would be a whole lot lonelier, right? So when you do stuff like this, it means a lot to me, and I'm sure it means a lot to a lot of other people, because it's nice to know that other people are going through the same stuff as you, and it's not just you, and you're not crazy.
Louder
Yeah.
for the people in the back. Amen to that. That's the whole reason that we wanted to do this, right? Is to document the journey. And it's funny because I say that's the whole reason we want to do this, but unintentionally with the community at the same time, because Sean and I wanted to do it for basically each other. When we met, realized we were on the same paths, and it's been a journey, and we can all appreciate that loneliness. But before we get into everything as far as that and all the Scratch Agency stuff, tell us about your story. How'd you get to where you are today? Tell us your background, where you're from, all that good stuff, and then we'll jump into the specifics we want to talk about.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So my story is a little different, right? It's the same in the sense that insurance fell onto my lap. I never looked at insurance. I never really wanted to get into insurance. It kind of just fell onto my lap. But it's different because I've never been a sales agent. I was never a producer. I was never a CSR. I never worked at an agency before. And so when I got my start, it started out in claims. And when you work in claims, man, it is a regiment process where they groom you to look at insurance. I don't want to say the legal side, but more on the contract side, right? It's all about policy interpretation. It's all about understanding the coverages. It's about looking at everything from a factual standpoint and taking the emotions out of it, right? And I started that a couple years right after college. And 1 year in, man, I fell in love with it. It was the toughest job. It was the most stressful thing, but it was fast paced, and that is my MO. Like I am all about that. And so after 1 year into the business, I noticed a lot of trends. And one of the biggest trends was a lot of agents didn't know what it was that they're selling. And the second thing to that, and it kind of correlates off of the first, is that a lot of agents didn't have any processes and procedures, right? Mind you, I'm going to take a step back real quick. I am the son of immigrant parents. I'm an immigrant myself. I was not born in the US. I grew up watching my parents open businesses left and right, trying to chase the American dream, and getting a firsthand glimpse at that.
Mm.
I told myself, and this is back then, I told myself I would never open up my own business. I would never open up my own business because I saw the struggle that they went through. I saw the long nights. I saw the long days, the suffering, the stress, all of it. And I told myself I would never do that. And here I am, 2 years in, and I decided to take that leap. Everything really changed right after COVID. Right?
Mm.
I think that changed a lot of people's perspective. Uh, it kind of let me know that I'm replaceable, right? When you climb up the corporate ladder, there's a whole lot of red tape that you got to go through, and that's okay. Like I went in knowing that, and I was going to play the game, but after COVID, I realized that I was easily replaceable, and they can easily just fill somebody in my seat. So when I found out that we were going to have our second kid, that was the day, February 22nd. I made it up in my mind, and I was like, it's go time. I need to pull
Man,
this trigger. And Sean, like you, the fear of regret. I did not want to look back 20 years from now, 30 years, to say I didn't pull the trigger because I was too comfortable in my corporate gig.
Yep. That's awesome,
we
man.
have
So
to
you
put
took
a
control of your own destiny in
right.
that moment,
We got to
you
put
know?
a caution on if anybody's listening to this driving, pull over until it's done. Because if I'm driving, listening to this right now, I'm just pedal down to the floor. Osama, I want to ask you a question about that journey. And I want to relate it to a call that I got yesterday from a client. And they said, "Hey, Steven, my wife's been staying at home with the kids, and the kids are older, and she's looking for a new career, and she's applied to XYZ insurance company." And I was like, "Oh, okay, that's great." They were asking, and the first thing they said of why she was interested in that position was because of the ability to climb the ladder, but the ability to have a comfortable, safe job. She's getting a paycheck, all of these things. And which there's pros and cons, which you just stated in your intro there. When you were looking at that from the comfortability, talk to us about that moment of like, man, I'm going from this job, this corporate nice claims insurance job, which is a great job that I have, to 100% betting on myself. Walk us through that.
I'll tell you two things. First, I'm going to recommend a book, the 50 Cent. I think it's Hustle Harder. I think that's what it's called. And it's all about betting on yourself, right? That was a little gateway to kind of open up my eyes to say, listen, if I'm going to do this, I got to put in all the chips, and I'm going to put all the chips on myself. If I do what I'm supposed to do, I'm not going to fail. And the second part of that, I want to give you guys a little bit of perspective. I am a very contextual person, very analytical, right? So I'm a C on the disc profile. And it's a double-edged sword because on one side, I can cross all my T's. You've got somebody who can cross all their T's, dot their I's, be very detail-oriented. But on the opposite side, you've got somebody who becomes a perfectionist and doesn't take any action. And that's what happened to me at the beginning. I was too scared. I needed to make sure everything was perfect before I made that leap because I was so scared. I was making good money. My wife is a stay-at-home mom, right? So it's all on me. And you guys are gonna laugh at this, but when I made the decision that I was gonna pull the trigger, I wanted full buy-in from my wife. And you know what I did? God bless her. My wife knows nothing about insurance. Like nothing. I went up to her and I told her my plan. I want to open up an agency. Here's what I want to do. And like without any hesitation, she says, I'm here to support you 100%, whatever you do. Now, mind you, she has no idea, no idea how the process works, no idea about renewals, no idea about commissions and all of that. And that took me back a little bit. I was scared. So I was like, hang on. before you get all emotional and you want to support me, I need to break this down so that way you understand what it is that I'm doing, because we're going to go from making money to not making money and basically living off of our savings. And I need you to understand that. And I'm not kidding you guys. I had this giant poster board and I explained everything to her. Here's how a policy works. Here's how I get paid. Here's what the percentages look like. This is what my forecast is for the first year. Here is my target list of the people that I'm going to talk to. And I went over all of this with my wife, and I don't know whether she was listening or she was not. But at the end, she gave me the same exact thing. She grabbed me by the shoulders and she was like, listen, I will support you with whatever you do because I have full faith in you.
Mm.
And that was it. Like, that was the support that I needed to say, let's go. Overthinking and trying to make everything perfect leads to analysis paralysis, and that's what I had for so long. And that I just needed to pull the trigger because there's really never a perfect time. It's like when you talk about having kids, there's never a perfect time to have kids.
No, that's a great point. I love how the wife reacted too, because I could tell you what, my wife reacted the complete opposite way. She was like, "What the F? What?" She's like, "What are you doing? I need to hear the whole plan. What do we make in the first?" Like, she had lots of questions, but they're both good responses. You
Yes.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
But Osama, I wanted to go back to the beginning here for a minute when you were mentioning that you were in claims and
Yeah.
you noted that some agents, that maybe they didn't know what they were selling. Can you dive a little deeper into that? Like, what were some of the trends you noticed with that?
The biggest thing was putting somebody, and mind you, at the time when I worked in claims, it was for a captive carrier. So a
Okay.
lot of people were fit into a policy that they should not have been in the first place,
Mm,
right? And obviously, in hindsight, now that you know all the different types of policies, you could easily tell what was covered and what wasn't covered. And throughout my entire journey in claims, I would mentally and I would literally write down stuff to say, okay, the way that this person did it, or the way that this person explained what this coverage is, because most people don't know what some of the coverages are, and a lot of it were poor explanation of coverages. Because when you're dealing with somebody that's having a claim, they are at their worst.
Mm.
They literally have no idea what's going on. And then it looks even stupider when the agent calls in and says, oh, yeah, this should be covered because this is what this means, when really that's not. They
mhm.
didn't understand it, right? Or
Yeah.
they didn't even go so far to set the expectation with their own client of, hey, here's your exclusions, or here's some things that might come up in the course of your business. So that was the first trend. The second trend is when stuff like that came up, we'd get a lot of E&O claims, right? Because the agent said one thing, the customer would say another thing. And so what we had to do as the adjusters was interview the agents. And I can't tell you how many times when we would interview the agents and you'd ask a simple process of, hey, Mr. Agent, when you have somebody that calls into your agency and they want a quote for this, this, or this, what does that process look like for you? Agents don't have that process. What does that process for documentation looks like for you? Document retrieval, phone calls, do you note files? Like, what does all that look like? And what it ends up doing is it hurt a lot of agents because nobody ever had a process in place and they could never tell you. It was a matter of, let me figure it out. I got to go through a bunch of stuff.
Mm.
Mm. So now being an agent, what would you say is the most useful thing that you've taken with you from being a claims rep?
It's bridging the gap between, like, the client policy and setting the expectations right away, right? I wholeheartedly believe you have to be transparent with people. You've got to be open and you've got to have those tough conversations, right? And if somebody calls in and they want to file a claim and I have an idea that it's not going to be covered, like I understand the whole E&O aspect of it, but I will tell the client, I just want to give you a heads up. This might not be covered because of this, this, and this. And the reason we do that, and the reason I do that, is because you don't want them to go through this entire emotional process because they're not going to get a decision right away.
You know what I love about that too is it's for every, like they say, crack the big nut first thing in the morning, right? Have the hard conversation, do the hardest thing you need to do, but set the expectation and then exceed the expectation, right?
Absolutely.
Set the in this example, you could use it in claims, you could use it in everything. When it comes to business communication with clients, like, I'm just going to let you know this may be difficult to be covered because of X, Y, and Z, but we're going to do our job to do our due diligence. Now, to your point, they understand, okay, there's a chance this isn't going to be covered.
Yeah.
And then when you come and say, hey, actually, we were able to cover it because of this, they're now pleased because you were upfront with them and you were able to
Yeah.
help them. Now, when you go and say, hey, we can't cover it, there, it's an easier conversation because you set that expectation. I mean, I think I think a lot of giving the expectation of like turning around quotes,
Yeah.
what the process looks like. Like a lot when I was starting my agency, I'm going off on a little tangent here, but similar premise. When
Yeah.
I started my agency, I wanted the automation, I wanted the communication, all of that to be very transparent to this is what we're doing at this time. And it may take us 2 days to get this type of quote back because we're doing X, Y, and Z. Once you lay that out and set that expectation, the client's fine with it and have the understanding of, hey, we're shopping multiple carriers, or this is a business quote and it's going to take us a little longer, or whatever, rather than we're going to get this to you as soon as possible. Well, Geico's telling them as soon as possible should be in 15 minutes. So what does as soon as possible mean? When you set that expectation for whatever type of communication you have, and then you can exceed it, it makes you look that much better and it's an overall better experience. Went on a complete rant there. I'm sorry, but I really, I think that ties in perfectly to what you're saying about just like the overall experience for the client in any type of communication.
It does. It does. And I'm going to go one step above that, right? So as a claims adjuster, I know how the claims world works in the sense of every claim adjuster, it doesn't matter which company it is, they are overworked, they are understaffed, they are underpaid, right? I tell every single one of my clients, and we go so far as to go extra steps, but I tell them this person is your best friend. This person has to answer to a supervisor, right? So if they say they need additional things, I will help you get it to them. We will do everything that we can to give them the support that they need because
Yeah.
ultimately that's what they've got to do. And so when it comes to a claim process, first thing that we do is after we help the client file the claim, day one, as soon as we know who the adjuster is, and it's a CC'd email to the claims adjuster and our client. Hey, I just want to let you know we filed this claim for Mr. Insured. Here's their best method of contact. Here's where you can reach them at. If there's anything I can do to help you out, you let me know. I am here for you. I'm the agent. And it makes that process easy.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be on your side. It's not going to be a combat because you see a lot of people just get into it with adjusters.
Yep.
I'm telling you, you treat them like your best friend and they will take care of your people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because a lot of the time the conversation, the way I've seen it go in the past, is a lot of times the first interaction with the claims adjuster is the customer calls you, complains that the adjuster didn't get back to you in time. Now you're calling the adjuster, and the first interaction is, "Hey, Chris just called me. He said he hasn't heard from me in 6 days," and
Yeah.
then you find out that the adjuster asked Chris for 17 pieces of information, and Chris didn't get any of them to him. You
What a
know.
great point. What a great point. Yeah.
So yeah, not like, I love the idea of once the claim is filed, you know who the rep is, send that introductory email introducing yourself with the client CC'd on it. That's a I like that. I haven't heard that before. Have you, Steven?
No, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
I like that
'Cause I
idea. I
mean,
like the
think
idea of
about it.
what's the first interaction, right? I mean,
Right.
you
Yeah.
make a great point there.
Most
Yeah.
agents usually come on the back end when things are on fire, right?
Yeah.
Why not set it from the get-go? You let the client know, hey, he's going to reach out to you within 24, 48 hours.
Mhm.
Here's your coverages once again that you and I talked about. Nothing is missed. There is no gap in
Yeah.
communication at all. Everybody's on the same page and it gets handled.
Mm.
I would imagine too, like I know one home carrier we have a lot of business with. We've had a few claims, and you're usually dealing with the same couple of people every time. So I would think too, to build that relationship, that's a fantastic way. Like Osama, I'm curious. So when you were in claims, and let's just say you had somebody that was super difficult to deal with, an agent, and then you saw that claim come in and you saw who it was assigned to, were you just instantly like, oh boy, here we go?
And you
Yeah.
could be if it's Sean and you remember it from the old days, you can be completely honest. Okay, this is a safe place.
It was not Sean. It was not Sean. But you could tell. You could tell right away just based off
Yeah.
how some of the agencies worked, right?
Mm.
Um, Sean, going back to another thing that I've taken with me, it's like the whole
Yeah.
documentation process. Like documenting using the CRM, right? Using the CRM to its actual full capabilities and putting all that information in saves us a ton of time because I don't have to go and search for it.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
right there and then.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I probably overkill, a little bit as far as like getting too many apps signed and whatnot. But I mean,
You
I'm
can
of the
never.
belief. I forgot who it was we spoke. We won't say the name even if we knew anyway. But I remember Steven and I spoke to somebody and they said, "Oh yeah, we bind stuff, but we don't get any apps signed prior to activating the policy." And I was like, I instantly had like a panic attack. I'm like, if I write anything, I'm getting signed apps prior to activating the policy. That's just how I've always done it, and what makes me
Right.
feel safe,
Right.
Mhm.
But you're
100%.
setting a good precedent, though, right? Like when you're bringing on other producers, you want to think about the stuff that
Yeah,
you want to groom them to, right? So the
totally.
good habits of, okay, here's the agency standard of you get applications signed before anything is bound.
Mm.
Point.
Love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe Sean has a playbook or two on that, I'm sure. All right, Osama, so let's change hats here. Bring us back. We had the conversation with the wife. She grabbed your shoulders, she shook you up and said, "Let's do it. Let's go." Talk to us about day one. Talk to us about those early days. Bring us back. I know I love the fact that we are like within a couple weeks of each other of starting our agencies. So I can tell you with my 2-year anniversary coming up in a couple days, it feels like 20 years. I'm sure you feel the same way. Bring us back long, long ago to when you sat down in front of the computer and said, "It's game time. Let's go."
The grind is real, man. The grind is real. It's following the habits. I told myself, I did all this pre-work before I even opened up the agency. And every single day, I'm like, I've got my entire sphere of people, every single way that I can reach them. Facebook, Instagram, email. Hey, just want to let you know, I finally opened up my agency and I polled a ton of people before. I wanted to see what name people would choose, right? So I gave people an option as to help me build this.
I like that.
And so when I reached out to these people, I'm like, man, the first year, I'm telling you, it was a grind. The biggest challenge, right? And this is in hindsight, I went in saying, guns blazing, here's what I want to do. I want to fix this. Mind you, I didn't know any servicing. I was trying to figure all that stuff out as it would happen. There was a lot of mistakes made. I recovered. They were also terrifying, but I recovered. We didn't lose any people. People were understanding. But the biggest thing was I wish I would have taken the time when I had time to write my processes and procedures. But in hindsight, I was figuring everything out. Or what's the saying goes, you're building a plane as you're falling, right? That's what it felt like.
Yeah.
It was a constant restructuring of here's how I want this to flow. here's what I want this to look like. Here's how I want this automation. And I had a goal, right? My goal going in was where the independent agent is losing to these direct to consumer companies, right? The people, the agencies that are succeeding are the ones that can provide value and are advisors. So how do I bridge the difference? How do I bridge the gap between customer convenience and customer experience? I'm going to ask you guys something. When you think of a new tech stack or a new piece of technology to help your agency out, what do you think of? Like, what's the reasoning?
Is it going
For
to save me time,
solve a
money,
problem.
solve a problem?
Okay,
You know,
is it going to save me time? And I think that's the biggest issue, though, right? A lot of agents implement things to make it easier for themselves. What are you doing to make it easy for your clients?
Mm-hmm.
Are you meeting them where they want to be met,
Mm-hmm.
right? You've got people that are investing in all these technologies and it's awesome. You can embed it under your website and it's got like everything and it'll implement and go directly to your AMS. But like, let me ask you this: if it was me and I was filling out a form online to get insurance and I see a 30 questionnaire form, I'm not going to do that. What are the chances that somebody actually does that? So even though the nice shiny technology is there to help us out, I think we need to look at it from the different perspective of how do we help the client out? How do we
Mm-hmm.
make it easy for them?
yeah, I'll never forget. I asked Billy Wagner this question a while ago, and I asked him like, "Hey, if I wanted to be the biggest and best insurance agent, what are the 5 things I should do every day?" And one of the things he mentioned was do one thing every day to enhance the client experience. How do you make the client experience more efficient for the client?
Yep.
Right.
You know, so I totally agree with you. I
I,
think sometimes the text is it's good to get into, but man, I had this conversation. Stephen, we've had it. I had it with David Watson once before. Like sometimes it's just I don't. There's so many different windows you can open on your computer. You know what
yeah,
I mean? I already got my Ring Central. I already got email. I already got Agency Zoom and AMS 360. I already have to open 15 different tabs. The last thing I want to do is open up another tab.
yeah.
You know what I mean? So yeah. Sorry, Stephen. Were you gonna say something?
Yeah. So going back to those days, I think some people have said, "Oh, 2 years you starting the agency in the last 2 years during this hard market and all of that, like how challenging it has been and all that." And you could correct me if I'm wrong. I feel from the 2 year mark from now, it was just before things got real as far
Mhm.
as the hard market and the underwriting crackdowns and all these things. I mean, it was just starting the agency in May of 22, which is when I started. You started a little before me. Was just before things got real, right?
Yeah.
Talk to us about that process of being a few months in when the hard market came, carrier appointments, all of these things, and like how did that like? I love the fact that you said like, "Hey, I went through these pain points and they hurt, but I survived them."
Yep.
And like, I think a lot of people can get in their own head. And I am at the top of this list of like, I'm not going to do X until I get all of these things on list Y done, right? I'm
Yep.
not going to start the agency until I know my process, until I know this, until I know that. Talk to us about those early days of setting the business up and all that.
There was no hard market for me. I didn't know what a hard market was.
Mm,
And that was my viewpoint going into it every single time. When somebody would say something like about the hard market, my immediate reaction is, I don't know what a hard market is. I just know what I'm doing.
mm,
And that shift in my perspective didn't stop me from anything. If I didn't make a sale, cool. It didn't happen right now, but I'll tell you what, can I follow up with you in a year or so? Maybe once my carriers get their stuff together and I'm a little bit more competitive, I think we can find something for you. But I never ever looked at it as this hard market as a hindrance to me. I feel it more now with the renewals coming in and things
Sure.
coming in a little bit higher. And so now my shift is, how do I change and get ahead of it
Hmm.
before it starts impacting my people, right? And,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
and that's a constant newsletter. It's the newsletters we send out. It's the videos that we send out. Our Facebook, our like, I do all these extra things, and I want the agency to do all these things ahead of time now to get ahead of it, so that way it's not an issue down the line, and we're transparent with people and we let people know, just to let you know, hey, your policies are going to go up in price, but
Yep.
the nice thing is you've got us. We'll review it if we have to. Otherwise, we'll make the best recommendation for you. And
Yeah.
people are open to
Uh,
that.
yeah, you have the right mindset about it. I mean, I literally just spoke to an agent like 2 days ago, who was talking about the market, and he's like, "Yeah, it's hard. It's a hard market right now." He's kind of down, and I just told him, I was like, "Listen, personally, I think this hard market is good for agents because there's opportunity everywhere.
Mhm.
Everyone wants to shop their policies right now. Everybody's looking for quotes, whether you're personal, home, commercial, whatever. Everybody wants a second opinion. So now to me is the time that you should be thinking, oh crap, I should be in full prospect mode. you know, Not the time to sit back and be like, well, it's a hard market, not much I can do. Because guess what? When there's a soft market,
That's
some
when it's
people
going to
might,
determine
yeah,
those two sides of the aisle, right?
exactly.
To Osama's point of like, hey, I'm doing what I can do now with the newsletters, do this instead of, sorry, Mr.
Yep.
Client, we're in a hard market. We'll talk to you next year. It'll be better. Hopefully, have a good day. That's what is
Yeah.
separating
And
folks.
and Osama, you talked about processes and systems earlier on in this conversation. Have a process or system built around how you handle renewals. So in the event somebody's price goes up 25% or more, what is the type of conversation you're going to have? Are you going to have that conversation with every single client you have? Are you going to have it with only the ones that are 25,000 in premium and up? Are you going to
It
have it
is.
with every single client?
Yep. And I wholeheartedly agree with you. It's finding out, one, that this is where the data comes in. This is where
Yeah.
understanding your book and like
Mhm.
the analytical stuff comes in, where am I going to spend my most time? I'm not going to spend my time on a $200, $400 bop compared to something that's bringing in a whole lot more revenue for the
Yep.
agency. Um, but to go back to the last question, I need you guys to know, like, my perspective of there's no hard market was I don't have a choice.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
am the sole provider for my family. If I am not doing what I'm supposed to be doing, I can't feed my kids, I can't feed my family, and I can't make a living. And that wasn't a choice for me.
Yep.
Mm.
Yep. Thank God there's a hard market.
Yep.
That's how you got to look at it,
So so
whatever market we're in.
so let's move forward in the journey. What's the agency looking like now? I know you said you're still one man show. What's
Yep.
the makeup? What are you attacking? What's lessons that you've turned into opportunities that you've learned? Like what's everything as we hit this 2-year mark, and then we can talk about what you plan for ahead.
Celebrated 2 years. My goal for 2024 was I bring somebody on by 2025. Now it's just a matter of, and I think this is the question a lot of people ask: do I bring a CSR?
Hmm.
Do I want to bring a producer?
I got
The
the answer to
more
that. No, I'm just-
the more I dig in, the more I'm involved with commercial, the more I'm loving commercial because it's complex, right? It's complex. I've got a specific niche that I'm focusing on. Um, but man, it's the biggest thing, especially when it comes to dealing with commercial. And what I've realized is the pain point for a lot of business owners is that they are disorganized. And so my viewpoint is I bring somebody on, they take care of the personal lines, and I go full force into commercial, and I can help those business owners. I can help them get organized and figure their stuff out, because I think that's the biggest opportunity.
Yeah.
I'm in the
I
same boat. I feel it.
Yeah. Yeah, I would also challenge you to, because I think everyone's situation is so different, right? Stephen, how many people, oh, the first hire should be sales team. Oh, the first hire
Mm.
should be a CSR. The first should be unlicensed.
Look at the
I,
conversation we had in the chat the other day. I mean, that
Yeah.
was
oh my God,
fantastic.
literally everyone will tell you something different. So what I think is a good practice to do is like a time and energy audit. Like throughout the day, what are you spending the most time on?
Yeah.
You know,
I gotta
and writing that out. You know, go ahead. What were you gonna say, Stephen?
I gotta sidebar this because I'm laughing and you guys are gonna wonder what I'm laughing, so I just want to tell you anyways. But
I know.
the other day when we had someone in the group chat brought up like, "Hey, I'm thinking of bringing on a producer. What do I pay him or something?" And
Yeah.
I think Osama, it might have been you and me like put in those gifts like, "Here we go," like with the
Yeah.
popcorn. I'm
Yeah.
ready to go.
Right.
And I'm with my wife. She's driving. I think we were going to dinner or whatever. And I'm just cracking up. I'm in my phone. She's like, "What's so funny?" And I'm thinking to myself, wait till I just respond with, "Oh, it's my insurance group chat." That's what I'm over here laughing by myself at. But it was fantastic because someone put that out there and everybody's like, "Oh man, this is going to be good." You know, and
Yeah.
there was great conversation around that. I thought it was awesome.
But that's the value that it brought, right? So like
Yeah.
I responded because I was like, full transparency. I've got nobody yet, but this is something I think about on a daily basis of,
Mhm.
okay, I want to hear some other people's experiences and what does it look like for them and what's going to work for them, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And
So good.
for this year, it's as I think about expanding more onto the commercial side. So we're about 85 personal, 15 commercial. Uh, the entire process, as I'm thinking about that, bringing that person on, I'm just refining the process of, if I bring somebody on today, would they know how to step by step go through everything? Would they know how to quote a homeowner's policy, a motorcycle policy with this company or this company or this company? That's the tough part right now, is
Mhm.
getting all of that uh, running like a well-oiled machine, because
Mm,
it's a lot.
I know.
Sean, sit
It's
down.
a
I can
lot.
see you. I can see you jittering over there. All right, this
No, it's
podcast
a
is only
lot.
supposed to be 45 minutes, but now it's going to be 3 hours because Sean's going to go on about his processes and playbooks. Everybody tune
No,
in.
yeah, yeah. You know what? I'll just leave it at this. I have the playbook on how to make playbooks coming out. It'll be free, and I'm giving it away. So it'll be
There we
done
go.
this week, which is it's May 8th today. This episode probably won't be out till like June, but it'll be out this week.
All
And
right.
I think it's the most helpful thing because, like you said, and Stephen will attest to this. I think a lot of the times too, we put so much time and effort into building the process and procedure, then we bring the person on, and then we're like, oh my God, I'm
What do
not
I
even
do now?
anywhere near where I need it to be. And then now all of a sudden you have 100 more you got to add. Um, so I think it's like a fine line of not over executing too much.
Yeah.
you, you know what I mean? Because listen, I love process and procedures. I thought I had a playbook on everything. Daniela's first week that she started with me, she was working on 6 new playbooks already. So
Right. But how many
you're
times
gonna
do you go
figure it out
back
as you
and
go.
revise the ones and change them?
Yep.
And that's the
Yep.
point I was saying earlier. You're never going to be 100% ready,
No.
whether it's
No.
creating a playbook or starting an agency. Right.
True.
I mean, like Osama, we're probably going to wrap this up in about 5 minutes. I want to close the show with some questions of like, what have your realizations been now being 2 years into doing this that maybe you didn't expect? Maybe, a two-part questions. What's something that, hey, this was a little easier than I thought, or this was a little something that was unexpected?
I would say the thing that was unexpected is I can see where a lot of agency owners kind of get bogged down on the processes part when
Mm,
you're trying to make a living, especially starting off, right?
Yeah.
You're trying to divide your time between every single head, whether it's the HR head, the marketing, the sales, the service, and having a process in time blocking of like where's the most of my energy going. I think I need to do that a little bit better. The the exciting part is just the fun of it all, the experiencing the journey, right? I'm a
Mhm.
runner and I've got a marathon coming up, and one of the questions that everybody always asks is like, why? Like, what are you thinking about in those, 4 hours of running? And this is what I relate it to. It's we don't know that time is passing on, right? And I've got a vision of what the end goal is, and I'm not anywhere close to it, but I try to take back every step and enjoy it because this is cool. I just celebrated 2 years of agency ownership, and not many people can, what's the statistic about businesses failing after the first year?
Hmm.
Like, that's something I try to take back and relax and just kind of enjoy. Like, this is a fun journey, and with all the chaos that happens with it, I got to remember just to take it all in and um,
Yep.
maybe write a memoir about it one day. So
I've talked about that a lot on the show about the power in just sticking your head up every once in a while, right? And even if it's even if you have to actually physically remind yourself to do it, like with a calendar or whatever, but they're like as hard as we go as scratch agency owners, day in and day out, to work on processes, to keep our customers happy, to bring new business in, to make sure bills are paid, insert everything else here. Take a step back, like you just said, and like, man, look what you've done over 2 years. What's the next 2
look
years going to be? What's the next 2 years going to be? And like just appreciating that and letting that fuel the next 2, 5, 10, 15 years. I think
look
I
at
think that's
look at the
fantastic.
connections too, right? Like the community has been overwhelming, and it is so awesome. Like
Yeah.
honest to God, you guys, the community, the group of the people, the podcast, like random people that I can reach out to from a Facebook group, and they're on the other side of the
It's crazy,
country,
isn't it? Hmm.
and they're willing to help out. Like who does that? And that's honestly one of my other favorite parts.
So one of the last questions that we haven't asked in a couple episodes. If tomorrow morning you were to wake up and it's day one, forget everything we just talked about. You're starting over. What's one thing, the first thing that comes to mind that you would do differently?
I would write, I'd get everything out of my head and I put it all on paper.
Mm,
I didn't do that. I didn't start doing that until a year in, and I wish I would have because I had more time back then. That would be my biggest advice. And that's one thing I do every day, right? Even if it's
Love
something little, I put it on and then I can refine it. It's a lot easier to go through and comb through all of that rather than come up with everything all at once.
that's awesome. That's awesome.
Agreed.
Sean, you got anything?
No,
You're
no,
just still over there. I could
I,
see you moving. Just sit
I
still.
can, I completely agree. I completely agree. That's probably the same thing with me. The first year before I brought somebody on, I should have definitely documented more. You know.
I
Cool.
want to. We usually wrap this up by telling people about our community that has been completely unintentional. Osama, tell people why they need to be in the Telegram Scratch Agency podcast community.
Listen, if you are not in the community, you are missing out. You are missing out on valuable information, and you don't have to go searching for it. It comes up and you don't think about it, and you're like, oh, yeah, I've been thinking about this specific topic, or somebody brings things on, or they share their insights. It's it it is what it is. It's a community, and it's a village of people helping you get better and adding value to where you are.
Yeah, I do. I appreciate you saying that. I just asked you to share because I really, um, your words really mean a lot to I know both Sean and I because this has just been a fun journey for us. I've talked about it a million times. Sean convinced me to do this. We've just done it. We've had no plan. We've created the community. What I love about the Scratch Agency podcast community is it's big enough, but it's small enough. We got to think like 42 people, 41 people, or whatever in there. But there's people that are the Brett Youngs of the world. There's people that started their agency, I think, in December that I know that is in there. And there's just so much value. So do us a favor, go to scratchagencypodcast.com. Click the join the community button. Osama, thank you again very much for being here. Can you just tell people where to find you, follow your journey, if they want to reach out about something you said, all that good stuff, and then we'll wrap up.
Yeah, you can find me on Facebook, just Osama El Haymi, or you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm not much of a LinkedIn guy, but pretty much all social media you can find me there.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate
That's
everybody.
great.
That is another episode of the Scratch Agency podcast. Thanks for joining us. Do us a favor, like the show, share the show, and subscribe. Most importantly, remember to dig down deep, believe in yourself, and own your own future. We'll see you next week. Take care.